All right, sir.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, thanks everybody for being in attendance for tonight's PCDC for May 15th. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Member Laura Ragsdale.
Present.
Member Petrie Powell.
Present.
Secretary Sam Wallach, present. And Chairman Rob Dragell.
Present. Let it also be known that our City Council liaison, Brian Lewis, is in attendance, as well as Carlos Trejo, Olivet's Planning Community Development Department Director, Don Doty, Senior Planner, Jack Carswell, Planning and Planning Community Development Administrator, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Sorry, Jack. All right, Carlos, is there anybody else in attendance that I need to list?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks for everybody being in attendance. Is there anybody else online besides me?
Yes, we do have one person that is online. I'm not sure if it's for public comments or.
Okay. Well, just so everybody's aware, if there's anybody new, we follow the agenda item by item as we go through tonight's meeting. Typically, there'll be a report that's issued by staff. There'll be some questions and answers from people on the commission to staff. Then we'll have the developer address the commission. And then we'll have public comments related to that agenda item. We also, at the beginning of the meeting, we do have a time for public comments that are for items not on the agenda item. So we ask you if you have those comments, to raise your hand, or either online or in person, and make sure we can get your opinion heard. We do ask that all members who come to the meeting in person, if they do have a public comment, to come to the podium and state their name and address for the record. Online, we'll ask you to do the same, as well. If you are online, we do ask you to kind of pay attention to the icons, because when there's a button to raise your hand. Make sure you click on that, and then you'll be brought onto the panelist. At that point in time, we do ask you to make sure that your video camera is turned on, as well as your microphone. Those are off by default, so it'll help speed things up if you can make sure you turn those on. Carlos, am I missing anything?
No, sir.
Oh, the only other thing is, we do ask that any public comments be no more than 3 minutes, just to be respectful of everybody's time and to make sure everybody's opinion's heard. All right, just better get that in there. All right. Carlos, I think do you have any comments, or are there any other public comments in the audience or online?
All right. If anybody would like to speak before the commission, just show your hands if you're online. I do recognize the two individuals that are in the audience. Both of them are for petition item. So Mr. Moser, that leaves yourself. I'm not sure if you're here to talk about the Bon Air or the St. Alfred property. All right, Chairman, it doesn't appear that there.
Okay,
Any
well, let's
comment?
move on to the next agenda item. I believe this
Actually,
is.
Chairman, I apologize, and I should have noted, if I can just do two public announcements regarding the adoption of the 2021 International Code Council building codes. We are submitting those to the council at their next meeting with the request that they become effective on July 1, 2025, along with a revision to our current fee schedule. In there, by state statute, we're required to give a 90-day, or excuse me, a 60-day kind of opening and allow opportunity for comment. And we started doing so and posted it late February, early March, that we were considering the adoption of those codes to go to council.
Okay, good. Any other discussion items?
And outside of that, remember that we have our 2024 comprehensive plan update that identifies our community vision, along with the goals and objectives of the city to be vibrant, unique, diverse, to create connections in a dynamic sense of place. So
All
Just
right.
thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which I believe is old business, item A, 15 Bon Air Drive. Carlos?
Good evening, Commission. Before you tonight is 15 Bon Air Drive. It's a new single-family home that's subject to site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management review. So in front of you, the house was actually in front of you guys on April 3rd, but was deferred due to complications with the HOA and making sure that that got approved through the voting process prior to coming to the Commission. As a result of that, in your packet, we do have the confirmation email indicating that the neighborhood has voted and has approved the amended designs, and those amended designs for the building plans are actually in your packet in front of you. In regards to the HOA concerns, those are just on the email page next or after that, but that has all been approved by or voted by the HOA. Other staff concerns consist of the stormwater management to the rear of the property. In the rear yard, there's it's a discharge pipe for a storm sewer, which kind of discharges into like this riprap that's located in the rear. However, that we would just ask the petitioner in response to, once we get the stormwater comments from the consultant, to set up a meeting with staff to go talk about that discharge pipe, just because it does get close to the rear of the other property, which is 13 Crosswinds Drive. So staff will hold an on-site meeting with the petitioner and the stormwater consultant and the property owner of 13 Crosswinds Drive to review the necessary actions concerning that storm sewer. And that meeting must take place prior to the petitioner submitting for that building permit application, so that if there is any, revisions that are needed to accommodate for that rear stormwater or storm sewer, that those revisions would be made prior to them submitting for building. Other concerns that were brought up was just the tree replacement and landscape plan. We'll go into the examples when we get into the actual tree portion. But with regards to that, is that we saw a landscape plan, the species were indicated on it. As a result, some of the species were not listed on the list. The species since then have been taken off, which is fine, because we, as a staff at this point, we wouldn't really need to know the species at this approval of their, at the time of the meeting or at the time of tonight. But that's something that we just have listed in the conditions that is made apparent, and that just verification with some of the locations of where those replacement trees are going to go, because one of them does seem to be in close proximity to where they're proposing to do the stormwater management facility, which is going to be located in the rear. I don't know my directions right off the top of my head, but I think it's the northeastern corner. Or yeah, yep, up, yep. Thank you. Also, in regards to, let me just pull up the other staff report. I'm sorry. In regards to just the lot area, to give you some more information, it's just a 19,991 square foot lot with a width of 138 square feet and a depth of 144 square feet. In regards to the concerns for community design review, the portions that came up were the stormwater management and our tree preservation. In terms of the other 8 principles, with massing the roofs, garage, elevation, articulation, and materials and site grading and top of foundation, there were no concerns from staff regarding those design principles. I know that the petitioner is here to speak, as well as a member of the subdivision HOA, so he will also be able to speak if you guys have questions pertaining to that process.
Okay. Chair, I also added some stuff, and sorry, Jack, I didn't go over
No worries
with you, but just kind of wanted to talk about the storm management on this parcel, because it is pretty important to kind of identify what's going on here. So in the next slide, you'll see an expansion of the proposed plan. But if you see, there is a pipe that runs just north to the site, all the way to the rear, and then takes a turn and then opens up in there. So down on your right-hand side is south. It opens up, and then there's this artificial channel that's some riparian area, some is just eroded, and some is concrete that goes all the way down to Ladue and then into the MSD system. It's been there for years. We've identified it as an area of concern as we're preparing, as Public Works is preparing a stormwater master plan And therefore some future improvement, either to advocate the MSD, to do some, some infrastructure improvement, or to come up with solutions on how to mitigate the stormwater that's going through there. Overall, what you see here doesn't look bad, but once you take a look at this at a broader level, here's the property number 15. This purple represents underground piping that eventually releases in the backyard of number 15, like right at the edge. Some of it's on its property, some of it isn't. It runs westward to the front of the property, across the street, and then you can see these all here kind of interconnect, then continues on to the other side of the subdivision and almost all the way down to Dealman, and then also heads up north to Berkeley Place. So there's quite a bit of area that's picked up through all these inlets that runs down this pipe, and then it stops, and then it just opens in the ground. And then when you look at it here again, just to give you some idea, here again is Bon Air. Here's where it's coming from the west and from the north along the side of the property, and then it opens up back in here, and then this is the open area that it just kind of runs through in there. I thought I had another slide. So that's with the property imposed. It opens up right here, goes down, and then here, this is what they call like, it's not a heat map, what's the correct term? It's a
Yeah.
LiDAR.
Yeah, LiDAR,
LiDAR.
yeah,
So it's
digital elevator
it
model.
it takes a good look at how the topography works. So as you get into a darker gray area, you can see that there's, the grades are changing quickly. So you can see here where it releases, and then how it just kind of goes all the way down here towards Ladue. Number 15, Bon Air is right here. And again, the petitioner, it doesn't install the MSD infrastructure. 95% of this is not even on the petitioner's property. However, the throat opening is, and there. So we do want to meet with the petitioner and our stormwater consultant to kind of take a look at, if there's anything that can be mitigated on their property to help really at least slow down volume. I mean, we don't anticipate them trying to handle capacity, because that's lots of capacity coming from various subdivisions. But if there's means to kind of slow down the volume help, slowing down volume helps minimize erosion and impacts to adjacent properties. Then by chance, we've been made aware that this property here, right behind the petitioners, number 13 Crosswinds, has been bought and should be coming in within a month or two for a new home before the commission. So we want to, in the conditions that Jack's put together, have that opportunity to get both of these property owners, developers, to work together alongside with our consultant to see if there are means to mitigate. We're not here to resolve this issue. We're not here to create a whole new underground piping system, but it is a rare opportunity where you have two adjacent lots that you could actually maybe come up with something that at least reduces the velocity going south or downhill in there. Again, I don't have a solution in there. It's a unique situation in there. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any issues, complaints, or concerns that have been expressed regarding the current status quo that is out there. But we are aware that, there have been periodic big rains, not like in this cycle, but over the past, 20 years, at least 2 or 3 times where we've gotten some calls or some damage that had occurred, given the amount that is going down there. So it works. It's just not very pretty. And if there's at least means, whether it's to acquire easements or to look at riparian areas or things that can be done to at least when it exits, it's not coming out as powerful in there. And I don't know what is the best solution, but we do want to have that opportunity, especially these two properties being next to each other.
Carlos, how deep is that channel behind the residence, and how deep does it get further to the south?
It's pretty shallow of what I recall. We've had a couple of properties that have come in, but I would say and there is a representative here with the Bon Air subdivision. I don't think it's more than 2 feet. It's like a concrete Y of sort that, it doesn't look like, it's nothing that's over 3 feet of depth.
How
Or,
wide?
pardon?
How wide?
Looking down here, there are probably areas pending on what I would call like the top of the bank that could
Mhm.
extend probably about 5 feet apart.
Okay,
But most of the channel area or those concrete areas are probably maybe 3 feet wide.
okay. Any erosion issues further down south?
Not that have been like brought forward to the city that have been recorded.
Okay,
A lot of people have kind of accommodated and kind of created an edge in that area.
yeah, yeah, I get it. Well, I'm curious to see what the consultants propose for
And
that.
And again, it may be just an opportunity to acquire some easement or construction easement for,
Mhm.
on behalf of MSD sometime in the future.
Right,
So
right. Well, thanks for going through that. That was a little,
I had a question because, I mean, is this, I know we want to address it because of the two properties being adjacent to each other. Is there a problem there now? Is it just, it's not attractive or it's not functioning well and it's flooding regularly? I mean, why are we even having a discussion about this if it's functioning fine?
it's a good question. Not sure how to address it in terms of people just have made an assumption that that's how it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Now, that being said, given the frequency of rains that we're getting and the intensity, I think that
Yeah.
perspective may be changing
Yeah.
a little bit.
That's what I would have expected, especially, having gone through the map to show how many inlets are feeding into this. It sounds like a lot. And so I'd be interested to see, what the stormwater consultant has to say about it. And will that also go somehow before MSD as well?
I think that they are aware of it. It just becomes more of a cost issue and how many, they look at it as, you know, uh, per capita, how many,
Yeah, yeah.
how many lots here would be,
Affected.
would be addressed and they have, it doesn't meet the threshold of some of the other sites
Sure,
that they're looking
sure.
at. Now we've identified it as a priority place for MSD as we advocate on different areas in the city. This is one of the areas. And then part of the Public Works Stormwater Master Plan is that they're in consulting with our same consultant that we use for the commission here, of identifying, steps that we can to improve the conditions in that area.
I can't see everybody, so is there, if we're not done discussing that, go ahead and continue, but otherwise, are there any other questions among the commission members to staff?
I don't think so. I think we're probably ready to hear from the petitioner unless anybody else has anything. No.
Good. Sam, if you could call the petitioner up, that'd be great.
The petitioner is waving and shaking his head saying he doesn't want to come up here and talk.
What?
No. Well, listen, yeah, if you have, okay. He doesn't want to give any comments. So,
Okay.
from the public want to give comments? If you don't mind saying your name and address. Thank you.
Turn them on.
Jack, can you press the button to turn on?
There we go. James C. Coster, number 10 Bon Air. I'm a trustee of the HOA. And some of the neighbors have expressed concern over the size of the house relative to the lot size. So you just want to ensure that the setbacks on all sides of the house are respected and that there are no problems with the stormwater plan. So we look forward to hearing from the consultant and see what comes from that. That's all I have to say.
Sir, I have a question for you. Since you're a trustee, do you know of any stormwater issues associated with that drainage ditch behind those yards?
I do not know of any problems, but I know there has been concern from other neighbors of water coming down from the area of Berkeley to the west into the yards there, but I do not know, I have not really looked at the drainage system in the back of this house, so no, I can't really speak to that.
No, that's fine.
But I'd like to
Sometimes.
go out there tomorrow and take a look.
All right, good. Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, is there any more, well, actually, are there any any other general comments? Both either online or in attendance?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
I noticed in the report that, we're encouraging folks to use the Missouri native tree list for their tree replacement. And in this case, they wanted to use these giant green arborvitaes, which are actually really great shrub trees. They grow pretty quickly and they're great for screening, but it's not on the list. And I'm just curious, when you have that kind of situation where you see these being planted on existing houses all over because they are robust and they're good for screening, it seems odd to not allow a new house to use, a well-known species like that just because it wasn't native to Missouri. And so I'm just curious how we're navigating that. And if we're just saying no, we're just saying no. And that's fine. But it seems odd when you see those that particular variety being planted all over for the screening purposes.
And to speak on that, I would say that as of right now, the direction that we're going is just going off of that list. And that is the reasoning for why there was those concerns initially for when this came in, was that species was not indicated on that list. But then I do see the point so it's something that staff can kind of work on internally to see if we want to go in that direction. But as of right now, I think we're just going to stick with the list that we have because that's the direction we're going to take the tree replacement and those code changes as of right now.
There would be nothing that would stop them down the road from planting those.
That's what I want to relay, because in no case is the city prohibiting the planting of arborvitaes in there. That is well within their purview, and it is an excellent screening material in there. But an arborvitae is not a tree, and this is a tree preservation ordinance. So we cannot count the arborvitae as a supplement to a required tree in there. Now, they can petition the commission if they have a sequence of them if they do a certain area that in lieu of this, they do that. But then they would have to show, my understanding for the purpose of the arborvitae is as a property owner would be that it screens really well. Now, whether that arborvitae has other attributes such as water retention or soaks up, or the soils and all that, and that it can be supplemented as the 250 square feet alternative for a tree, that's something we can look into. But again, one is I want to make sure that any additional tree species or other plantings that a petitioner would want to do, they're not prohibited in there. But there is a gray line in which whether they count as trees as part of the preservation criteria that we'll go over later. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Any other discussion items? Hearing none, do I hear anybody propose a petition or motion? Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Sam.
Motion to approve a petition for a site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management review for a new single-family home at 15 Bonnier Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated May 15th, 2025, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Second.
Motion's been made by Sam Wallach and seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Powell,
Approve.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
and Chairman Drill.
Approved.
Okay, motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
All right. Okay, whenever you're ready, Carlos, we'll move on
We are set,
to
sir.
item B. Pardon?
We are set.
Oh, 11 St. Alfred Road. I assume that's still on the agenda item, right?
Yes, sir. So we're just going to request for deferral for that just because we have yet to receive the stormwater comments as well as the comments from the city attorney regarding the agreement. So we're just awaiting that, and that's why we're going to put it up for deferral tonight. Thank you.
Okay, good. And that's okay with the petitioners?
Yes, they're not here. We spoke with them this afternoon.
Good. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4, discussion items. And item A is tree protection, preservation, and replacement. Carlos?
I'm gonna let Mr. Carswell kind of go over the draft, and then we'll have a discussion with the commission.
All right, very good.
So throughout the week, I've been working on doing some example lots, and we'll get into that. For instance, 15 Bon Air is one of them that we were looking into. But we're talking about changing that, coming up with the adopting the text amendment for the tree inventory protection and replacement. New definitions were added in terms of nothing new really that you guys haven't seen. But for instance, having the definition for a significant tree being the 8 inches of DBH or more, and then going off of the inventory, we shifted the focus from the canopy to the significant trees based off of the DBH. Had those distinguished zones between the building zone, the yard area, and the utility zones. Establishing the tree protection measures which is the plan. We put in now the plan requirements within this text so that it's going to be in code rather than just as a minimum submission requirement for what you guys will see. It'll be something that's actually required by code. The protection and maintenance requirements and the arborist report. In terms of those requirements that we're looking at, it's going to, be focusing on making sure that we have the tree protection plan coming in and being imposed on top of the existing site plan so that we can actually see, if they're removing this is going to affect a tree, we can see it on the existing one. And then we're going to go down the road of having the landscape plan being proposed on the proposed site plan so that you can see where those trees are going now, because some arborist reports will come in and they'll have the landscape plan on the existing site plan, but then it's hard to tell where their stormwater is going if they're placing a tree on top of the new driveway and so on. So we're going to talk about putting those into the code. And then in regards to tree replacement, we're establishing the tree replacement standards, including the submission of a landscape plan, having those minimum standards in place for the landscape plan, for the preferred species going off of that native list of trees through the Missouri Botanical Gardens, doing an alternative design in regards to replacement, and then planting conditions with the escrow and warranty. So, Carlos, do you want me to just go into the next stuff that I was looking at? Okay. If you could go to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, well, so this is the direction that we were going. In front of you guys in your packets, you do have my document of the tree examples. That document's going to include, both documents include all of the information that's necessary, but this has a little less just because it's in the presentation. So we're going to be looking at all the replacement trees, and those replacement trees are going to be any tree, 2 inches of caliper or more. The species being that native list, the minimum. So we're looking at it now as a minimum required for all lots. So you're going to go from like a 1 tree per every 2,500 square feet of a lot for the first 10,000 square feet. So if your lot's automatically over 10,000 square feet, you have to replace 4 right then. If your lot is automatically 20,000 square feet or more, or 20,000 square feet, 37 or 20,000, 37. Yeah. Then you go into automatically 6 trees being in replacement with the way that this is going. Yes.
So I'm a little confused. So does this have nothing to do with, if you have existing trees on your lot?
So it does, but I'll go into it.
Okay,
Yep,
okay,
yes, sir.
okay.
So then also with the 1 tree per every 10,000 square feet, that's when you get up past that 20,000. So it's just kind of these increments that go into place based off of your lot size. Yes.
I'm sorry, this still is confusing to me. So and I don't know how to word it in a way that makes sense because it's not perfectly clear that this is, you have your first 2,500 square foot for a 1 tree per every 2,500 square feet. And then you add from there per 10,000 and then per 40,000. It's a cumulative thing if you have a lot above 40,000, correct? I mean, I
Yes.
think when you look at your examples, you had 4 trees required for the first tier and then another 2 for
The second tier. And then once you pass over that 20,000, any 10,000 more of that is going to be an additional tree.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that language, when that shows up, and I think that needs to be more explicit.
Fine-tuned,
I just
yeah,
find it
yep.
really hard to get that from these
that.
particular words.
Yes, ma'am. And it was something that we're working on internally. It was a little confusing also for me when I was doing it, but then, doing the practicing and everything, I got it down. But then the number of trees being replaced. So we're going to take the replacement calculation, which I'm going to go into in a second, but that's going to be how we designate the inches and calculate how many we're going to, if it's a 15, 30, we're going to go in that direction. So it's going to be the replacement calculation minus the minimum required for all lots. So if I have a lot that's 20,000 square feet, I'm going to take that replacement number and then minus it by the 6 trees that I'm required to have on my lot. Then we're going to allow that the number of existing trees that people are preserving that are over 15 inches in DBH, you can subtract that from the replacement that you have to provide as well. So for example, we'll go into 15 Bon Air. If you could go to the next slide, please, Carlos. So 15 Bon Air is a lot that has, here we go, 1 minute, let me just pull it up real quick. Sorry, it's a 19,991 square foot lot. So if we're going off of this, just off of the trees that are required based on the lot, that's going to be 5 trees required on the lot. Then you're going to go up to, then we're going to count all of the trees within the buildable area. They're not removing any trees within the buildable area. So in terms of our buildable area calculation, nothing will be needed for replacement in regards to that. In the yard area, they're removing 10 trees. So we talked about in the past going the direction of on your tree replacement text that you have in front of you that we've been working on. That's what we're going to go off of. So I'm going to be going and calculating the trees within 15 feet of an improvement within the yard. So if you have, in terms of Bon Air, there is 6 trees that are within 15 feet of an improvement. So then I'm going to take all of those DBHs, I'm going to add them together to result into 168 inches of caliper being removed from the property. Then with this way that we have it, it's anything that is within 15 feet of an existing or proposed improvement, 1 tree for every 20 inches of DBH lost. So I'm going to take that 168, I'm going to divide it by 20, and I'm going to get 8.4. 8.4 is the amount of replacement trees, or 8 trees. We're going to drop it down, but the minute it goes to 8.5, you get pumped up. So it's going to be 8 replacement trees solely based off of the trees that are removed from the yard. So then trees not within 15 feet of an improvement, there was a 32-inch caliper tree being removed and a 24-inch caliper tree being removed. So that goes to 56 inches total, divided by 15 is 3.7 replacement trees, but you bump that up to 4 now. So now you have to replace 8 based off of your within 15 feet, 4 based off of not being within 15 feet. So in total, that's 12 replacement trees. So if you go back to that calculation that's on the bottom of that table, that's going to take your 12 replacement trees minus the 5 that are required on the lot, minus 0 because they're not saving any ones that are more than 15 feet or 15 inches in DBH. So in total, 15 Bon Air would be having to replace 7 trees on that property. But we were talking about the direction of, yes, I was confused because I saw the other ones in the corner that those don't exceed 15, but we're going to do that 15 as a 1-for-1. instead of doing it as, if I'm saving 2 trees and then a total are, 30 inches, well, it's still going to equal 2 replacements if it's 1 for 1. But it might be a little more clear if we just go to the next property as well. So now we're looking at a petition that'll be coming up to you guys in the future. That is 7 Lisa Drive. So on 7 Lisa Drive, they're removing 4 trees that are within the buildable area. So in total, that's going to equal 4 replacement trees based off of the caliper number. In terms of the yard area, they're removing 13. So that's going to 13 trees within 15, but a majority of them are not within 15 feet of an improvement. So that equals 10 replacement trees. And then you take in we're going to count the non-significant ones that are from 4 to 8. And in total, it's 14 minus the 6 that are required on the lot, minus the one that they are saving that's over 15 inches to equal 7 replacement trees as well for Lisa Drive. And then we go into 11 St. Alfred, which is also going to be, what we were looking at previously. But that's this is where we're going to ask for commission, advice and direction of how to handle this, because this was a weird instance. Is majority of the trees that are on their property are not significant DBH. So if you're adding all of these, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4 trees, you're going to end up with a lower number. So the way that it came out to be was that with this calculation, it was 7 replacement trees minus the 6 that are required on the lot. But then they also have 2 trees that they're saving that are over 15 DBH. So in total, we were saying that would be 0 replacement trees necessary. But then when you go that direction, we were thinking you automatically have to go based off of your lot size now. So that's going to be 6 replacement trees, but now they get 2 taken off because they have the 2 that they're saving. It's been a little tricky situation trying to figure it all out with the numbers that we're going off of. But I think the examples have worked out pretty well with the numbers that have come out. But yes, Commissioner Wallach.
Who is going to be responsible for calculating this?
Me. I've been sitting in front of the numbers all day for that.
The petitioner and the representatives are not going to have to come up with this number.
Nope. This will be me. This will be me telling them this. I know it's a little complicated with all of the different numbers and everything, but the way that we've been looking at it is if we were to, raise the number we're dividing by, that's going to, in my opinion, it's going to allow them to have less for the replacement. And then if you lower it, I think it's just not going to really be that feasible too with when you're dividing those numbers.
Well, I was saying, it's like, I
know we're throwing a lot of
feel
stuff at
really a
this.
numbers person, but I am completely and utterly lost at this point. And I'm wondering if there could be a worksheet that they can fill out themselves to see where they are, because you don't want to have your, a design done and all this done and then come in and say, okay, what do I need to do with my trees? You want them to have done that before they come in. And the way that you described it, I'm sure makes perfect sense to you. I'm completely lost as to the replacement trees plus the DBH plus,
Yep.
It's very confusing.
No, and I understand that.
And so I would think a worksheet which gives you that information very, very clearly would be absolutely necessary in an application packet.
And that's something that we can go down and do and make sure that we have that language fine tuned as well as that all of the numbers and stuff that we have indicated on there are stated clearly. That's
Good.
something that, internally we've been working on, of course, just trying to get those calculations to try to see how it works on these example properties. But then, I don't think it's fine tuned enough for it to, it needs to be wordsmithed and also played around more with the numbers to make sure that we are good. But also Carlos and I were talking with the direction is this could be something that, works for certain properties. And then we're going to find down the line, there's a possibility that we may run into an issue and that these text amendments need to be revised or changed again. But it's because this at least gives us kind of a test and gauge of like what we want to look for and how we're going to be calculating for replacement.
Yeah, I completely agree about a worksheet needs to be posted. I don't know how many people are actually going to do it, but at least you can say, here's how you do it.
Yep.
And you've got your Excel spreadsheet that you can punch the numbers in or whatever, and it'll spit it out. As long as we're not getting absurd results, then that's fine with me, and there's a logic to it. I mean,
It
I'm sure there will be
does seem a
cases where-
little
but there's
too.
a process by which people can petition, right? I
Yeah.
saw some language in here about unfeasible properties. People can make an argument. and
Yes.
Say we can't.
I
it,
think it's on the last page.
Yeah.
That we have a portion about a variation where it says upon written request, the commission can consider the reduction in tree requirements if the petitioner can verify that due to the topography, utility easements, or unique lot conditions, compliance to said standards would not be unfeasible. In no case should the commission authorize a reduction of more than 20% of the required trees, though.
If they do want that, does that, they have to go
Can you
to
go
the,
back
they would
that
have to
slide
come
with all
before
the
us.
different cities
Okay.
on there
Yep.
that you saw, that it just passed through, please?
It's the yeah, right there.
Yeah.
What happens if they, you put the numbers in and they can't go below 20, but they just can't build it? There isn't space.
Mhm.
Like or lines or things like that. What is the recourse?
I think then well, hopefully the direction would be to allow for alternative design requirements in regards, but again, that could go into the space requirement too, because maybe they don't have enough space to put in a rain garden or something down that line. I think that is something that we need to work on more internally in staff of how to address those problems if they do come up.
My only concern is you use the phrase like, no matter what, cannot be lower than this,
Mhm.
but there might be situations.
There
where
might
you
be
just- I wouldn't box yourself in a corner. is all I'm saying.
And we did have a discussion internally in staff as well of how, we do get those lots that come in that have 0 trees on them already. So what happens if a lot comes in and they have no trees on them? We would say that then they would be held to the minimum required for all lots. So we would go off of that calculation on square footage. For instance, I think like 546 White Rose that came before you guys had no trees on the lot when it came in. And then we would go off of the square footage and calculate, this has to have 7 replacement trees. So as a response, the petitioner must come in design based off of our requirements.
In response to Brian, one answer would be build a smaller house to not take up so much room on the lot so that you can get the trees that you need to get. I mean, that's, to me, should be one of the ways to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
I feel like that could also be, when it comes before the commission and they state that, that's going to be a discussion that the commission must have to designate, is this the correct design? Is this the direction we want to go? Do we want to look at, preserving these trees rather than, it's something that we have the ability to question the scope of the design.
I'd like to give my opinion, if you guys don't mind. So I think this is way too complicated, honestly. I just think that this is way overboard. Is any of these other cities have anything that's like this?
There are some set, but the disconnection is like, we don't have an arborist.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a staff, nor are we looking to take up that aspect of it.
Mhm.
So it does make it a little complicated. So the way this is set is that, the inspector, or whether it's Jack, they're not looking at what the species type is. They're not looking at what the canopy area is, and they're not running any special calculations in there. It's just based on, that number, crunching those numbers in there based on from that arborist report. Now, on the arborist report, and I got a note also, since we had distributed just in line, Rod, you don't have any of this. So I do want to note that. So you may be
Okay.
lost in a lot of this process. When we get the arborist report, they've already calculated that information on there. And then they crunch the numbers. Similar to when we get the architect's plans, they've already crunched the area, the height and all that. Then when we get the site plan, the engineer has crunched the site area, the floor area and all that. So there are levels that we get to verify in there. So in this case, we will have this full table with what they believe is set. So all we're doing is going through their table in there and then identifying those numbers in there. And you're right. I think if we create some type of worksheet, it'll be a little bit easier to explain. It's taken us a while to get to this point. So I do understand in there, but I think what it does is it just makes it a numerical process as opposed to trying to become a specialist in tree types and placements and locations.
And I agree with that. First, I totally agree with
Mhm.
making this not about the inspector and everything, making it super easy. I'm just not sure if as a developer, as a new house person, that this isn't more complicated than it needs to be. I would go back to the 1-for-1 tree, no matter where it is in the lot. You take down a tree, you replace the tree. And that's really just a simple over 6 inches, 12 inches, whatever we come up with. And that's just a simple thing. If something doesn't have it, then doesn't have a single tree and they're not doing anything, then maybe it goes to something like this, that it would fall over to it. That's
Minimal.
where I would say that make it just super easy, and especially to start out with, and then go maybe in 5 years that we see that that doesn't work and we want to do more, then we go to something that's more stringent with that kind of thing. That's my opinion on it.
Is that something, continued discussion for our next meeting, but to talk about that? Because the balance that we're trying to do is what we've heard from the public and some of that expectation, the new council and what its priorities will be, but we won't know those till later down the road in there. And again, we need to put something into place, and it may be something, this is trying to explain this to the council, the commission's recommendation, that it would be, zero down to a one-to-one replacement and definitions as we're working to get to the table of numbers to eventually getting to some type of tree ordinance is my assumption that will happen. But I think from my end, as a staff liaison, would be going to the council and then not meeting that expectation. The intent is, I think we're all looking at the same vision, because the comprehensive plan does put tree preservation and consideration of a tree ordinance in place, but it's not a quick fix.
Oh, yeah.
That we're moving in a step, and I think that hopefully that would be, from the council's perspective, a little bit more palatable.
And then my other question is, how much do these arborist reports cost? Do we know?
That's a good question. No, nobody's questioned it yet.
Yeah, no, we
So
have.
we
yet
can get
to-
an idea.
Mhm.
I'd like to know just.
I'm
That's
gonna
what
reach
it
out
is.
to the person from Frontenac Forestry
they've been
to
pretty
ask
helpful.
about that, but I also want to ask about the color scheme that they bring in, because you can see on some of the reports they come in as to be removed is always in green. So but I also don't know if that's, kind of the way that arborists classify, those type of terms with those colors. So I want to make sure that we can get that clear. And then maybe if that's not set in stone, they can come in and do the trees that are being removed in red and the ones that are supposed to be kept in green to kind of help with that process as well.
I think that would be good to talk to them.
Okay.
I was just thinking that in the one-to-one, like my reaction is, yes, that would be so much easier, but I don't think we have a situation where, I think the more likely situation is a small house is taken down and a bigger house going in. And so doing 1-for-1 may not work, because now the buildable area is bigger and there's less room for that kind of tree, to replace the big trees, I would say. I mean, we saw this on that property off of Old Bottom, and I can't remember the side streets that they're technically on, that was going to be divided in two. And then there were some very nice, really big trees, but the whole thing was clear cut. I mean, completely clear cut, because at that point, because of the buildable area, you couldn't have that big of trees, I guess, in that area. So I think I understand the concept. I just think it's complicated. It's very complicated, and it may be overly complicated, but I think one-on-one, it may be too simple. Maybe too simple.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Ken.
no, you go.
I'd just say, just speaking for myself as someone who spends a lot of time looking at statutes and regulations, that when they're written the way this is written, look incredibly complicated, or not designed for readability, but are designed for legal purposes. I don't want to overreact to this and to say this is like incomprehensible at first blush to a regular person, because I'm wondering if, like the worksheet we've been talking about, when it's presented in a way that is designed to be read by a layman person, it's actually not going to be as complicated as we think it is. They're going to be just pulling numbers off of the arborist report they already have and the other things, it's a matter of filling it in and doing some addition and subtraction there. So I don't know that that's the case, obviously, because we haven't settled on what that would be. I don't want to throw everything out now just because it appears complicated on first blush, because I think presentation is going to be a big part of it, probably.
Yeah, and as a response, sorry, Commissioner Nicholas, but as a response to that, I would say that it would be best probably for staff to come in with a digestible worksheet to present in front of you guys how this is going to be run. So it's more cut and dry in terms of some upon first glance, rather than seeing, all of the text changes at one time and then being thrown in with 3 examples as well. Because it was tough for me at first too, to run all these numbers, but I've also been sitting in front of it for 2 days now. So I got this down, but I understand how, like, upon first review, it was a little complicated for me too. So we would just go down the direction of making a digestible worksheet, or, informational sheet that anybody can reference in regards to those calculations, so we can run those numbers.
I definitely.
I would also
agree.
consider,
The other thing I wanted to say was, I think it's important, it's not just the arborist that needs to know how to do this, that the lame person can do this. If they wanted to come in and pitch their own house or whatever, they got to be able to do this too.
Completely agree.
I'm not sure if I'm over talking anybody, but I would consider trying to simplify each step. If you have the 3 steps that makes, sense with what you're trying to do, but like the minimum number of trees, maybe just get rid of the formulas and just say, for 5,000 square foot, this is the minimum. For 10,000, this is the minimum. For 20,000, this is the minimum. And you might lose a couple 1 or 2 trees in between those thresholds, but I think it would help simplify it quite a bit.
I would agree with that. Yes, sir.
Okay, I am just curious too, because I've been hearing lots of people, or not lots of people, but certain people telling me that Olivet is more complicated to work with than in other adjacent cities. I just don't want this tree ordinance to fall in line with that same aspect, so whatever we can do to make it simple, make it understandable, I think is very important, but still achieve the goal that we're trying to do. Was I cut out?
Nope.
Nope. Perfect.
Okay, good. Okay. Good. We'll move on to
You need to
the
ask
next
public
discussion item. Give me a second. Oh, are there any, thank you, Tim. Are there any public comments related to this agenda item?
No, sir. It was just Mr. Eckler that's still here.
And if the person online would like to speak, please raise your
Okay.
hand.
All right, Chair.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next? Okay, we'll move
Yes.
on to accessory structure regulations.
And
Carlos.
for that, we
or-
don't have anything additional.
Oh, okay, good. Then we'll move on to other business. Are there any meeting minutes
And
presented?
there are no meeting minutes for this round.
Okay, then we'll move on to reports.
Did math all week long.
He gets excused. All right, we'll move on to reports. Carlos?
All right, regarding reports, I'll let Ms. Stody talk about the Business Award luncheons and the coffee with the mayor that was yesterday in there. Outside of that, on some of the progress on some of the developments starting on the east side, the footing and foundation for Lot 3 is well on its way. That's the It's about a 15,000 square foot multi-retail tenant building. They'll house the Paris Baguette and the Brass Tap. And their council has been in discussions with the developer and has set a deadline for submitting the hotel component to the commission. I believe it's either late summer, early fall, to have the plans before the commission by that date in there. And there is still some concern regarding the office component given the current market conditions in there, but we're still anticipating that that will progress in there. Across the street behind the Chevys and CVS, the final leg of the multifamily building, the Irvington Place, is under construction. So pretty much the shell will be complete, the shell of the building will be fully completed probably within the next month. And they're anticipating, they're looking for some type of occupancies that first quarter of next year in there. As you go through the industrial park, of course, the former Enterprise Fleet Management Facility has been converted and is now the offices for a subsidiary of Emerson Electric in there, and they are up and operating partially in that building. A little bit north of that is the Auto Beauty Specialist, which they were going to occupy some storage space across the street where Paddle and Pickle is underneath. In there, they've submitted the permit plans to get that moving in the process. The Great Rivers Greenway is still negotiating regarding the bike access lane that runs through the industrial park. In there, there's one property that they need to resolve, and after that, hopefully things will start moving on that early next year. The city will be commencing 2 street improvement projects on Olive at the intersection of Dealman Industrial and Olive, where between US Bank and Alvey or Intelligrated are located, and at Price and Olive, the small CBD facility that used to be an old donut shop. That building is being purchased by the city. It's going to get torn down, and then they're going to add an additional lane there, and that's going to help improve some of the entry and exiting outside. Right now, there are 2 southbound lanes, and one southbound lane is a dedicated left, and then the other lane is a dedicated left, go straight, and go right. So if you're trying to go right, if someone's there going left or going straight, you're going to wait the whole cycle. So now there'll be a dedicated right that should improve a lot of the traffic movement there. Same thing at Dealman Industrial Park, which is the block over. They're going to install a dedicated right lane in there. That should also improve a lot of the traffic circulation in that area. Outside of that, we have no activity up by the Oliver to try to update. I think the council's given them till late summer to come back with possibilities for redevelopment of that site. And I think that kind of covers most of the big projects that are going along there. Be glad to answer any questions, and I'll let Ms. Doty talk about the business licenses.
When are they going to start the intersection at Price where the CBD is?
I think that is going to probably be late summer.
That'll be very helpful.
Pardon?
That will be very helpful.
Yes, and you're familiar with
who used to live right there. Yeah.
So we thought Olive would be repaved by then, but we don't think so. I think that's probably going to be late summer to early fall. So it is scheduled for MoDOT to resurface from Dealman Industrial all the way to 270 in there, but we just haven't gotten the date yet. So. Okay.
Good. Good. Don?
Business licenses were due today, and that it really doesn't have anything to do with our business awards, but it has been busy this week. We had coffee with the mayor on Wednesday, which was really lovely. All of our businesses, our honorees anyway, came out and spoke. It was the shortest coffee with the mayor I've ever attended. And yet everybody came away with some new knowledge about the businesses that we have. So the UPS store is our business of the year. Fallon's is our restaurant of the year. And our first ever EDC Commissioner's Choice Award was the Bridge STL, which is located off of Bauer. I would encourage all of you to, get familiar with any one of these businesses. Fallon's, I did not know that they really made all of their food from scratch, and apparently they have the biggest Irish whiskey collection in Missouri and Illinois in the bi-state region. So it's very, cool to know about that and to know how much the UPS store has benefited from something as simple as an automatic door. When people come in and out with their packages, it makes the whole thing so much quicker and easier for people who are visiting it. But then also their new location has played a lot into their success. But virtually everyone in town has visited the UPS store, and they certainly were voted very popularly for it. At the coffee with the mayor, there were people that came up and were telling them how they voted for them, which was really sweet. And the Bridge, if you're not familiar, is a nonprofit that creates or collects and creates shopping experiences for families that are how is that, what's that word, nominated, can't they, they are recommended by a known individual. The family is allowed then to shop at their store. They collect everything from like all home goods, so not just clothes and things like that. And they provide private shopping experiences so that it has more dignity and privacy for their and customized to their family, which is really very fantastic. And it was definitely a pleasure to spend the day giving out, or the last 2 days, getting to talk with them and honor them. So, and head to Fallon's, of course.
Not familiar with Bridge
That's all I
STL.
really have to. Oh, sorry, Rob, what was that?
I'm not familiar with Bridge STL, so that was very, very interesting to bring up. So thank you for that, and I guess congratulations to all the other awardees, the UPS store and Fallon's. So did not know some of the other tidbits about Fallon's. I guess
1344 Bauer, and they accept donations on Tuesdays between 10 and 4. So next Tuesday, I am going to be dropping things there. But they or if you Google them, it says temporarily closed. And they are not closed. They are just only open, by appointment, basically. And they do have public buying hours, but it's more for their, I don't know how you say, constituency, their client base, as it were.
gotcha, gotcha,
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
and Jack has
So it was awesome to attend coffee with the mayor yesterday and learn about all of the businesses. Just to, put in some more information for the Bridge, is that they are looking for donations for men's clothing, for like jackets, hoodies, and they said boys like t-shirts and stuff is something that they really need. And they
men's
said
casual wear.
at any time anyone is able to go over there and just check it, set up an appointment, talk to them, check the place out. They said they were willing to give tours and do all of that. So it seems like an awesome business, and we're happy to have them in Olivet.
Very good. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that and appreciate the update.
A couple of more things, Chairman, with the commission. One, the council liaison will address, but we are, of course, short two commission members. It's my understanding that we do have the council will be having an interview with an appointment at its next meeting. And we've asked, given that we are short 2 members, and we'll talk about next month. It looks like the council, if the interview goes well, that there will be some type of consideration at their meeting on May 27th, which is great. I do appreciate that. And then the other position is an open resident position, which will probably, not sure if that will get filled early on, because they do want the public to have an opportunity to participate, or that will be done in July when the other, all board members are renewed, and such. But we've kind of urged the need to have a 6th member that has some type of architectural, landscape, or design background, and that's who the council will be interviewing someone at their next meeting 2 weeks from now. And there, the other thing would be for June. I believe our next meeting is June 5th, and it is June 5th, and the follow-up meeting is June 19th. Okay, so the June 19th meeting falls on Juneteenth, and we're not authorized to hold meetings on any city recognized holiday in there. So we were kind of looking, and then the first meeting in July, I believe, is July 3rd, which is the day before July 4th. In there. So we were going to approach the commission to consider combining those 2 meetings and look at that middle Thursday between the 19th, which would be June 26th in there. So if you can take a look at your calendars in there. But then, as we were kind of talking, the meeting for June 5th, it's my understanding that at least of the current 5 members, 2 members potentially have conflicts, which would get me below the quorum. But if council does do their appointment, I'll be back up to a quorum in there. But wanted to bring that to the commission's attention if we want to consider an alternative date. My goal is the sooner I can give advance notice to the applicants and also to interested parties, it's always better for them for coordination purposes. So I guess what I'm asking is trying to get a confirmation of who would be here for June 5th, if we need to consider an alternative date for that meeting. And then if June 26th would be an acceptable meeting date for a combination of the second meeting of June, the first meeting of July.
Carlos, I can tell you right now, June 5th, out of town, but I can attend via Zoom like I'm doing tonight. And then I'm also available the week of June 26th. I'll be in town, so I can, that works for me.
So just to make sure I understand, for June 5th, you can attend online.
Correct.
Okay. And okay.
26th, I'll be, I can be there in person if we hold it.
Okay. In there, if the council appointment happens, and then I know Mr. Ragsdale, and I'm not going to point you out in there, but you will be, and yeah, and that's what I want to make sure. So we should be, if the council appointment, no, whether or not the council appointment is, if Ms. Powell is able to attend, then we should be good. I'll have 2 people online, 2 people in person in there, and I do appreciate that. And then it is possible that we may have another member, but they'll be really new to that process. So in there. So it looks like we can make June 5th work. And then in terms of combining the June 19th and July 3rd meeting to June 26th, is there any issues?
No.
Is that something we can?
I can
Understand.
attend online if I have service.
Okay.
That's
All right, I have enough direction. I'll put these together, send them out tomorrow, just for confirmation. And then if there's anybody that has some issues, just let me know. We got the time. We have 3 weeks, I think, to our next Thursday meeting in there, but it looks like everything should work pretty smoothly. Appreciate it.
Very good. Okay, Carlos, if nothing more, then we'll go on to Brian.
I don't have much more than what Carlos has said. I was going to mention, obviously, the interview we have coming up There is actually a city council meeting on May 20th, kind of a unique one that they added as an extra. And then the May 27th is where we have the interview, but I will make sure to push forward that we'd like to make a decision immediately. But I think that was the plan, is ideally that night, because I had stressed that. I do think for the extra position, they want to wait to the normal cycle to give enough time for people to apply, because they want everything posted. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, not just this, but there's also Parks and Rec, ECDC, there's almost every board has an opening right now. So please encourage people to apply. And then obviously the other one to call out is Olivet Night Out. It was on the list of things here on 6/17, but just you know, they're trying to do it in June, not in July, where I think it's like a national night out because it'd be too hot, or August. So just different communities are having barbecues or having people out and they organize. So just encouraging people to do that. I know city council will be going around with the police and the fire, just to check in on everyone. So that's all I had.
Good, good, good. Anybody else have anything? If not, then we'll adjourn at 8:15. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Rob.